Views from every room plus a separate studio with its own entrance downstairs. Let's see what this combination is worth in Kaneohe. If you go looking for what homes in Kaneohe's Mikiola neighborhood are actually worth, the number you find is going to be misleading. Not because anyone is hiding anything, but because of the way this tiny neighborhood works. There's one specific kind of sale here that quietly distorts the price of every other home around it. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. By the end of this tour, you're going to understand what's really driving value in Mikiola and what a combination like this one, a full renovation, views from nearly every room, and a separate suite downstairs, actually commands right now. Let's get into it. And one quick promise before we start. I'm not just going to walk you through the rooms and tell you the ceilings are tall and the views are nice. You can see that for yourself. I'm going to give you the actual market data on Mikiola. What's selling, what's sitting, how fast, and for how much. So whether you're buying here or selling here, you walk away knowing more than any listing page would ever tell you. High ceilings the moment you step inside, and a covered outdoor space that wraps the home. So the line between inside and outside basically disappears. Let me set the scene on this neighborhood because Mikiola is one of those Kaneohe pockets most people on Oahu have never set foot in. It's small, really small, 263 homes total, tucked into the hillside and strung down along the bay. Most of these homes went up in the late 1950s and 60s when this side of the island was being built out as a quiet residential community, and this particular home dates back to 1967. You're right up against Kaneohe Bay here. Minutes from the boat ramps, a few of the streets have water access spots where neighbors launch kayaks and paddleboards, and you've got quick highway access cutting you over to town. That combination, bay living with a real commute that works, is a big part of what windward buyers are paying for. And the size of this neighborhood, believe it or not, is the whole story of the numbers I'm about to show you. I'll come back to it. Inside, the living room and the kitchen share one open space, and every window in here is doing work. It's either the bay or the mountains, depending on which way you turn. The kitchen is the centerpiece of this renovation. Waterfall edge quartz island, crisp shaker cabinets, stainless appliances, all new, with vaulted ceilings soaring over the whole thing. And when I say this home was renovated, I mean it was taken down to the studs and rebuilt. That matters for a buyer in a practical way. New kitchen, new baths, new flooring, split air conditioning, all new lighting, all of it done this year. So you're not inheriting somebody's deferred maintenance or surprise repair 6 months in. On top of that, the seller is including a home warranty, which means the major systems and appliances are covered for your first year. On a home that's been completely redone, that's a nice safety net to walk in with. Now, here's your first piece of real data. Homes in Mikiola, when they're priced right and move-in ready, sell fast. Not Oahu fast, Mikiola fast. The homes that closed here this year went under contract in 3 days and in 8 days. Earlier this year, one sold on day one. That is not a typo. Listed, brokers open, under contract all in the same week. So if you're a buyer watching this neighborhood, the lesson is simple. Hesitation is expensive here. So right away, this is the view that sells Mikiola. You're perched up on the hillside above Kaneohe Bay, and the water just opens up in front of you. There's a covered terrace off the front. Let me use this view to explain something about Mikiola. This is a tiny neighborhood, and out of those 263 homes, only about 5 or 6 actually sell in a given year. That creates a strange problem with the numbers. Last year, 2 of the homes that sold in Mikiola were true waterfront, right on Kaneohe Bay. One was an oceanfront teardown lot. The other was a custom home with its own private deepwater dock, and it sold for $3.3 million. Now picture what that one sale does to the median price for the whole neighborhood. One dock home, and suddenly Mikiola looks like a $3 million zip code. It isn't. Strip those 2 waterfront sales out, and the homes up here on the hillside, like this one, were selling closer to the low 1 millions in older, original condition. So when you see a Mikiola median quoted somewhere online, always ask what's inside that number. In a neighborhood this small, a single sale can swing the median more than anything about the actual house you're standing in. That's the distortion I promised you at the start, and it cuts both ways. So hold that thought, because I'll come back to it when we talk about what this home is really worth. If you're getting something out of this, do me a favor and hit subscribe. This whole channel is Oahu neighborhoods, broken down this deep every single week. And one more thing those waterfront homes have that this one doesn't, and it's actually a point in this home's favor. The bayfront lots down on Mikiola Drive sit in flood zone D. That's a FEMA designation, and it basically means undetermined risk. The flood risk down there hasn't been fully mapped, and that uncertainty can push your lender to require flood insurance, which adds real money to your monthly cost. This home, up on the hillside, is in Zone X. Minimal risk, no flood insurance required for a standard loan. Same neighborhood, very different carrying costs. So always check the flood zone on this specific house because two homes on the same street can sit in two completely different zones. Here's something specific to the windward side that matters if you're shopping here. You're close to the Marine Corps base on this side of the island, and that shapes the buyer pool. VA financing isn't just accepted in Mikiola, it's actually being used. One of the recent sales here closed with a VA loan. So if you're a service member or a veteran, this is a neighborhood where your financing works and where sellers are used to seeing it. And one more real number from a recent closing. One of the homes that sold here came with about $16,000 in seller credits toward the buyer's costs. That's a reminder that even in a fast market, the right offer can sometimes include help with closing costs. It's not the norm here, but it happens. And it's the kind of thing your agent should be asking about. Now into the bedrooms. There are 3 bedrooms on the main level, and we'll start with the primary. Same story. You wake up to the bay. It has 2 closets, including a really generous walk-in with built-in shelving, which for a home originally built in the 60s is not something you take for granted. And while we're standing in here, here's another number that tells you the temperature of this market. Mikiola has been running at about 1 month of supply. Let me translate that because it matters. Months of supply is how long it would take to sell every home currently for sale at the current pace if nothing new came on. 6 months is considered balanced, buyers and sellers on even footing. 3 months is a seller's market. 1 month means that if no new listings came on at all, every home in the neighborhood would be gone in about 30 days. Mikiola almost never has more than 1 or 2 homes for sale at any given time. That is how thin it is. When a renovated one shows up, there is no backup option down the street. The primary bath carries the same finish level. Walk-in shower, double sinks, all part of this year's renovation. Down the hall, there's full-size laundry, all new, and a flex space the listing calls a den. There's no door on it, so think of it as whatever you need. A home office, a media room, a quiet reading spot. And here's a data point most agents will never put in front of you. How Mikiola buyers have actually been bidding. Late last year, buyers were paying over asking. Closings came in around 103% of list price in October, 102.5% in December. That's competitive, multiple offer territory. But move into this year and it loosened up a little. The most recent closings came in right around asking, even a touch under. So Mikiola is not an always over ask neighborhood, and it's not an always talk them down neighborhood either. It depends entirely on the specific home and how it's priced, which is exactly why condition and pricing strategy matters so much on a home like this one. Let me come back to value for a second because this is the part that explains what this home is really worth. The homes that sell up here in older original condition have been landing in the low to mid 1 millions. But renovated move-in ready homes are a completely different animal. When a home here has been fully redone, new kitchen, new baths, new everything, buyers have paid well above that, into the mid 1 millions and higher, because they are not buying a project, they are buying done. And you can see this pattern in the homes that didn't sell too. Over the past year, the homes in Mikiola that closed quickly were the ones in top condition. The ones that sat or got pulled off the market tended to be the dated ones or the ones that were tricky to show. So the market here is really splitting into two lanes. Move-in ready goes and fast. Anything that needs work or comes with complications waits. This home is firmly in the first lane. And a quick buyer tip while we're talking numbers. Don't get too hung up on price per square foot in a neighborhood like this. The smaller homes up here actually sold for more per square foot than the bigger ones. A 900 square foot cottage traded higher per foot than a 2,600 foot home did. That's completely normal in Hawaii because so much of the value is in the land and the location, not the square footage. So lead with the total price and the lot, not the per foot math. Before we head downstairs, let me give you two numbers that surprise almost every buyer who isn't from the islands. The first one is the property tax. On a home at this price, you'd brace yourself for a big tax bill, and you'd be wrong. The taxes on this home have been running a little over $3,000, not a month. For the entire year, Oahu has one of the lowest property tax rates in the entire country. And if you live in the home as your primary residence, the owner-occupant exemption knocks it down even further. So the cost of actually owning here is a lot gentler than the price tag makes you think. That is something the listing photos will never tell you, and it changes the math on what you can afford more than people expect. The second number is about who you would be up against, a real share of the recent home sales in Mikiola, close all cash. No loan, no appraisal, no financing contingency. For a buyer using a mortgage, that is important to understand. Because when a seller is weighing offers, a clean cash offer can beat a higher one that is tied to financing. Now let's head downstairs, and this is the part that makes this home different. There's a completely separate studio down here with its own private entrance. It has a full bath, its own laundry, and a wet bar, a sink with space for a fridge, though no cooktop. So it's not a full second kitchen, but it is a true private suite. This is the kind of space that gives a home options. Long-term guests who want their own door. A home office that's truly separate from the rest of the house. A separate suite with its own entrance is hard to find, and it adds real flexibility that the older single-level homes in Mikiola just don't offer. And think about what that flexibility is worth over time. Now, a space like this brings up a question I get all the time. You'll hear two terms, Ohana and ADU, and people treat them like the same thing. They're not. Ohana means family in Hawaiian, and an Ohana unit is the older type of second dwelling the county used to allow on a lot. And those rules tightened over the years. An ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, is the newer path. Oahu created accessory dwelling units back in 2015 to add rental housing, and they carry their own rules on lot size, parking, and how big the unit can be. But here's what actually matters standing in a room like this. What legally turns a bonus space into a second dwelling is a full kitchen, a stove, cooking. This room has a wet bar, a sink, and space for a fridge, but no cooktop. And that is very often on purpose because the moment you add a range, you've created a second unit, and that opens the whole permitting conversation. As it sits today, this is a flexible suite, not a separate home. Here's something worth sitting with before we talk final numbers. Most of what actually comes up for sale in Mikiola was built decades ago, back in the 1950s and 60s, and a lot of it is still in close to original condition. That is the whole reason a home like this one stands out. A full, down to the studs renovation in Mikiola is not a once a year event. It is closer to once every few years. So when a finished home like this one comes up, with the views, the layout, and the separate suite all in a single package, the competition isn't the other renovated homes, because there usually aren't any. The competition is simply whoever else is willing to pay up for not having to do the work themselves. And here is why finished homes are so rare. People do not leave Mikiola. Remember, only 5 or 6 homes sell here in an entire year, and a good number of those are estate sales, homes that stayed in one family for decades and only came to market when the owners passed them on. The owner before this one had held this property since the 1990s. Estate sales like that can move fast, but they often come with a longer, court-approved closing, so they reward a patient buyer who knows the process. And that is the pattern across the whole neighborhood. People buy here, settle in for the long haul, and hold. For a buyer, that means two things. Inventory will always be tight. And when something this rare does come up, you don't get a second chance at it next month because there may not be a next one for a long time. That scarcity isn't hype. It is just the math of a neighborhood where almost nobody sells. So, in a place where almost nothing comes up, and what does is usually original and dated, this combination, the renovation, the views, and a suite that can stand on its own, is exactly the kind of home that doesn't sit. The buyers who win here aren't the ones waiting for the perfect moment. They're the ones who recognize the rare one when it's right in front of them and move. Which brings us right back to the real question. What is this home really worth in a neighborhood where the numbers lie to you? Here's how to think about it. That neighborhood median gets yanked all over the place by a handful of waterfront and dock sales, so it's close to useless for a hillside home like this one. What actually matters is the right comparison. Renovated move-in ready homes up on the hillside, and those have been trading into the mid 1 millions and higher. Strip out the waterfront noise. Line this up against the homes that truly compare. And it fits. And here's one more way to sanity check it, straight from the county. They split every property into two values, the land and the building. On this lot, they put the land at around $900,000 and the structure at under 300,000. Three-quarters of the value here is the land and the location, not the building sitting on it. That is the Hawaii real estate story in a single number. What you are really buying is a hillside parcel above Kaneohe Bay, and the renovated home on top of it is almost the bonus. So the right way to value this place is against the other homes that truly compare, not against a headline median that a couple of dock sales blew up. The lesson for Mikiola is simple. Don't trust the neighborhood median, and don't trust a quick number off a website that's never seen the inside of the house. Trust the homes that actually compare, and an agent who knows exactly which ones those are. So what is this combination actually worth? A fully renovated home with bay and mountain views from nearly every window. 3 bedrooms up plus a separate studio with its own entrance down on a quiet flag lot in one of the smallest, fastest moving neighborhoods in all of Kaneohe, listed right around 1.7 million. Whether that's the right number for you comes down to how much you value not lifting a finger and getting in ahead of the next buyer in a neighborhood where the good ones go in under 10 days. So if you are even thinking about buying or selling in Mikiola or anywhere on the windward side of Oahu, reach out. I track this market down to the single sale, including the homes that quietly come off the market or never hit the public listings at all. And there are a couple of those in Mikiola right now, one that was tied up with a tenant and tough to show, another where the owner chose to rent instead of sell. Those owners are still out there. Send me a message and let's figure out what actually makes sense for you. I'm Oksana with Island Living Oahu. Subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.